welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road, where we are joined once again by friend of the channel, John Stewart. Welcome back, John.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I know people are saying, oh God, him again?
Well, John's got some potentially juicy information about the Lockheed UFO, the one they were trying to divest themselves of to AAWSAP. If you're not familiar with John's reporting, he's previously researched the alien interview, and his research was so compelling. Got at least two different groups of remote viewers to remote view it and authenticate it. Got Richard Dolan on board. He's now a believer in the alien interview. John has also brought information about the Lockheed-Martin JSOC firefight to us, which was backed up by Nico, and it seems to be something that Ross Coulthart also believes in by the questions he was asking Jake Barber. And Jake said he couldn't comment on it because Dobser would not allow him to. But that seems to suggest there's something there, right? So without further ado, let's get into John's new information. He's got a source, Michael L. Am I saying that right?
To really recap, real brief, and I'm going to be real pithy here, so we don't take up a lot of people's time. December of 2023, I get emailed a story because I was leaving and still do, leaving people my personal email when I do podcasts about the alien interview investigation, asking people to email me about my investigation or anything related. And in December of 2023, I get a bizarre, crazy email from a Michael L. Said he used to work with Lockheed. This is water cooler talk. That was his lingo. But he thinks there is legs to this story, and meaning that the story could be possibly true. And very quickly that Lockheed made a break. Lockheed was given a crashed NHI craft in the 60s. They did a rough reverse engineering of it and came out with the flux liner that we've all seen in drawings and pictures from that Air Force
Mark
air
McClandish?
show.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, Mark Cavendish, correct.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
always remember that name because it's out of that last name's out of a Agatha Christie novel. Anyways, and so they made this rude flux liner, however successful that it was. And then one point the story was Lockheed um, made a breakthrough. And they made a breakthrough with psionics in figuring out that, and this is very, very deep information. They made a breakthrough that in order to create a near perfect non-human intelligence craft, this isn't an email, folks. This isn't me bloviating. They realized that the beings were using where the craft and the beings were one, a symbiotic relationship, both biologic and mental, psionics, telepathy, thought projection, as Victor once said. Victor, my whistleblower. And once Lockheed made this breakthrough and created a near perfect, again, this is in the email sent to me, which bared out to be true a month ago with Jake Barber, that they decided to kind of throw the United States government off the trail, kind of push them back off of this information. They wanted to, what is it called? Stonewall or gatekeep this information from the U.S. government. And in a crazy kind of like really bad, ham-handed way, told the government, you know, that craft you gave us in the 60s? We really couldn't do much with it other than making that flux liner. Do you want it back? And there's an old saying in Washington, D.C., and this was allegedly happening in the late 80s, early 90s, I believe, that you give somebody the hors d'oeuvre and they don't come back for the main course. Does that make sense? So by giving back the government, according to this email that has been proven, that tenets of it have now been proven correct by Jake Barber, that Lockheed thought they would throw the United States government off the trail of, well, wait a minute, what else did Lockheed do? Did they make any breakthroughs? Why aren't they telling us? Give them this craft Whether it's the egg or not, I can't tell you. But to give them the craft that they were given in the 60s back to the government, kind of a give back. Here it is, and we're just going to go about our business. And the failure of telling the United States government about this new, modern, near perfect, my leaker's words, near perfect alien reproduction vehicle, near perfect to an NHI, that they flew this vehicle in 2004. It did a hard landing in northern Nevada. I once thought it was southern Nevada, northern Nevada, near Luning, Nevada, a ghost mining town. And it did a hard landing, and the Lockheed recovery team was sent, the strike recovery team was sent to recover this craft. But the problem was, and I hope I'm being pithy here, Jack. The problem was that the United States government and JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, was monitoring this craft from Palmdale to northern Nevada because they thought it was an actual extraterrestrial craft. Because Lockheed did not tell them, oh, we made this near perfect non-human intelligent craft. So it was kind of like Lockheed getting busted. As Lockheed's strike team descends on the hard landed crash, so does JSOC. They do not know of each other's intentions. In a firefight, a blue on blue firefight between JSOC soldiers and Lockheed mercenaries, with allegedly two JSOC soldiers being captured and murdered. Hyperbolic. So let's just say captured and killed, or killed in the firefight. Because let's not make it any more hyperbolic than it sounds.
Yeah, the story that I heard was actually pretty grisly,
Pretty grisly.
pretty dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listen to Jack, folks. I'm believe me, I am sugarcoating this. So this story gets leaked to me in December of 2023. I file it like with all the other crazy stories that I've been emailed, and I'll maybe put it in a book one day. And in January, 2 weeks later, as I am discussing this story privately with like Ross Coulthard and a couple of other people, my emails get stolen for a second time. I go on the internet and I just type in Lockheed, and I find out that they have this bizarre hacker program. Whether it's true or not, it scares the pants off of me, terrifies my wife. And I go on the redacted program, Clayton Morris, to talk about what is happening, to kind of hide in the dark, hide in the open, to say, look, I'm not really investigating this story, which was the truth, and please lay off me. Somebody just sent me the story. And, and it's crazy. And I was eviscerated on the internet. That I made up this story. I created a phony email account, emailed me myself back and forth the story. Just crazy, crazy drama on the internet. But I took the heat. I kept going along. Ross Coulthard kept telling me, stay with it. I believe that there are some tenets of this story that are true, because Ross was emailed the story too, and Ross also heard another account before he was emailed by this Michael L. And here, lo and behold, comes Jake Barber, and in his regular News Nation interview, I don't think anything of it. It's pretty interesting. But then the 3-hour version of his interview comes out. And Jack, I told you, I fell off the couch. He's talking about being hired by a private aerospace company. You can see Ross Coulthard being the red flags going off in Ross Coulthard's head, like, oh, this is the story Jon Stewart and I were emailed. And Ross is prodding him. And Jake Barber basically says this narrative, this private aerospace hiring mercenaries, firefights being set up, came from a book that I sent to DOPSR, the government department that clears any kind of manuscripts from soldiers to be released in the public. I was the author of the manuscript, Sentinels of Ether. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. At least I'm not nuts. At least Michael L. was basing it on this information from this book that was leaked in the inner circles. And I'm thinking, okay, I mean, at least it wasn't total bullshit. And then Jake Barber says, but the story is based on truth. And we wanted to get more information of what the government knew by them either redacting some of our story or not redacting it. A counter, as Ross Cole
Yeah,
does,
they were
counter
fictionalizing
and
real stuff to
counterintelligence.
see what Dobster
Right,
would redact, and then they could base what they wanted to do based on that.
right.
Is my understanding of
Right. So
yeah.
I am blown away that this tier one special forces helicopter pilot, Jake Barber, and Jake, if you can ever get a hold of me, please do. Got a lot to talk about. Is telling the story that he's the author of Sentinels of Ether, which I thought was amazing because it's being authored by somebody that is totally legit, tier one operator. And then News Nation cuts to Jack. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Please interject. Jake Barber's superior officer, who says, yes, we were mercenaries hired by private aerospace. They set us up many times, and there were murders that occurred in these firefights. I mean,
He did not specifically say there were murders. He said he wouldn't talk about it, but there was evidence that there were shots exchanged, and he wouldn't say anything else about it. But
okay, wait a minute.
the inference was that there probably was a firefight, and there were likely fatalities.
I know I'm fat, crazy, old pro wrestler with COVID brain. I heard Jake Barber's superior officer, the guy in the maroon shirt, he
Oh,
looked at the
are you
camera and
talking about
oh,
Blitch?
whoever he was. I thought he was Jake Barber's superior officer. There was two other people they interviewed. Folks, forgive me for not writing down the name. He had like a maroon shirt on. They only showed his interview for a couple of minutes.
I think
He
you might be
wasn't the
talking about Lieutenant Colonel Blitch. I don't
yes,
know if he
he
was
said
actually
there
Jake's
was
superior, but
murders.
yeah, okay,
Okay,
yeah,
wherever he
keep going.
was.
But he was knowledgeable about, yeah.
He said there were murders. I specifically heard that. And I'm like, holy crap, that this story might be true. They're being set up by private aerospace. Were they recovering craft? Was it Lockheed's craft? Was it laptops that under the water? These crazy stories. Nonetheless, I thought that the genesis of everything and the crux of the story, which is what I said a year ago, which is we have we have publicly traded companies acting and operating almost as their own sovereign country, their own radar, their own soldiers, their own landing strips, their own equipment, involving in firefights, uh, subverting the United States government that gives them this contracts for all kinds of projects. And that to me, as a guy that ran for Congress at one point, was completely ridiculous and had to
Yeah.
be
And
investigated.
also it's international. If you couple that with Michael Herrera's information, where he was seeing a similar paramilitary team with an ARV in Indonesia, with guns and
Right.
everything, probably similar to one of those teams that was involved in the Lockheed Martin firefight.
Yeah, and I know they're yeah,
Yeah, they're international. They
right.
know
And
no, yeah.
yeah, and I respect Lockheed for what they did in the reverse engineering, but you gotta tell the government you can't be willy-nilly and flying a craft around. And I even got the information of how Lockheed can fly an alien reproduction vehicle without tripping off air traffic control. It's simply you file a round robin flight plan and you categorize that craft as experimental, one that you either made in your garage or whatnot. So for people to say, how could a company fly a alien reproduction UFO around? It's not too difficult. You designate it as experimental, and you file a round robin flight plan, and it's as simple as that. Now, when they do crazy maneuvers, I heard it's over this. What did Jake Barber call it? The
The
ranch
range,
or
yeah.
yeah, the range. So, anyways, I just thought that was another interesting tenet. But and Michael the leaker, whose email has proven true, so says Jake Barber, writes me again last week to tell me that there are two factions in the Pentagon. One is this religious faction, Jesuits, and I've got his email here, evangelical Christians, he calls it, made mostly up of U.S. Air Force officers. They're in with the CIA. They're with the Lockheed Northrop Grumman group. He said there's a group two, which is Office of Naval Intelligence in conjunction with DIA. I've told you people that DIA and Department of Naval Intelligence work together. They in that crazy facility S2 Alpha. He said that the ONI and DIA, this is not me, folks. It's a leaker. Their main contractors are SAIC. I don't know who that is. Thermal Dynamics and Texas Instruments.
Yeah,
Um,
SAIC, that's an interesting group. I'm trying to remember what I used to know about them. It's gone now, but
okay.
yeah, is that the I'm going to say it wrong if I say it. So I'm not going to get into SAIC. I'm going to have to refresh my brain before I talk about that.
Large amounts of material are being stored at the SAIC and General Dynamics tenant buildings located on the NSA, NSF Naval Support Activity and Naval Support Facility installations. Wow. Just says group one believes overarching phenomenon, this to be a biblically demonic or angelic divine force that is seeding this material and technology. I can go on and on and on. And then that group, two, the other group does not believe that this is demonic and angelic and so on and so forth. And Jack, how many times have me especially or other people have said we've got these the constant tenant or the constant verbiage is two opposing groups in the Pentagon, you know,
Yeah,
wanting disclosure,
yeah,
not
it
wanting
comes up.
disclosure. It's Jesuits, it's Christians versus fun. I've heard just last week the old guard and the new guard. That's a new thing that's being floated, at least to me, to speaking about these just basically two diametrically opposing factions within the Pentagon, which I think is interesting, which I think we are going to see more of that playing out and more leakers talking about that in the future. I just wanted to come forward today just to kind of give a little clarity that, yes, this Lockheed trying to give this old extraterrestrial craft back has legs in it. This is what was emailed to me a year ago, and I think people should put some believability in the story.
Okay, so this was an egg-shaped craft.
No, I don't. I'm just saying,
According to
like, the
according to what we know now, that
correct,
James
correct,
Lukaski actually went
right,
in.
right,
And so this was not the result of them, luring these objects in with the psionics, the per the Jake Barber information, these
right,
egg-shaped craft that apparently they're
right,
doing. I don't know why they're all egg-shaped, but apparently that's what they're
right,
doing. So this wasn't a result of that. This is something they had acquired years ago. Um,
correct.
and
And
they've been seeing eggs forever. Lonnie Zamora back in the 60s or whatever,
we've been seeing eggs forever. That's really kind of a funny statement, by the way.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
I know it is.
I
Well,
mean,
it's, we just have another shape, there's
yeah,
saucers, there's cigars,
yeah,
there's eggs, there's
right.
more.
I know,
So,
I know.
so yeah, but
Jack, what's
we don't,
funny?
we're not used to talking about eggs. So it sounds funny.
What's funny too? And people scream when I mention this, but James Lukaski, am I saying that correct?
Like,
Talking about absolutely no visible propulsion, no absolute fathomable way this thing could operate or fly, no wires, no propulsion system. And I just want to say it's just something that Bob Lazar did say back in 89 and 90 and said it 10 years ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever, that this these craft appear, their propulsion system appears to be like working on magic. Yes, there's an alleged reactor and the equipment beneath that. I forget what Bob called those. The equipment beneath that, and then the ones that are actually projecting the gravitational force each way. And Bob said, yes, they're all there, but they're not connected by anything. We don't understand how they communicate with each each piece of equipment communicates with each other. And Bob kept saying the same thing that James Lukaski said. It's almost operating by magic, and I just find the correlation stunning and revelatory, and just maybe another tenet that Bob Lazar, to some degree, knew or saw something that people discredit him possibly from actually seeing. Just my opinion, and I wanted to get that out there. Because when other
Okay.
people start backing up your story 30 years later, it starts to raise my eyebrows. That's all. That's
No, I
it.
like it. I like it. So just putting some pieces together is your take on this that Lockheed had this egg-shaped UFO that they were trying to divest themselves of to put the government off the scent, like,
Correct.
and they had already gotten what they needed out of it. They were making their own UFOs at this point, ARVs, flex liners, and so they wanted to put the government off the scent, and they were going to give it to AAWSAP. But at some point, the CIA came in and kind of nixed it for whatever reason. And so is that's your take on it?
Correct. And then remember Michael L., and folks, I'm going to hatch at this, but he also said that Congress got involved and they were upset that maybe the CIA was thwarting this exchange of material from Lockheed, and Congress was upset about that. I'm not saying that that is a fact, but Michael, my leaker, did say that Congress was upset about the exchange not going or not actually happening. And I believe that if it was the egg or whatever, and this lack of how this propulsion operates without wires or fiber optics or transistors or anything led Lockheed to think, well, maybe it operates psionically. Is that a right word? Or telepathically, or in a realm that deals with an esoteric concept that we don't understand yet. And there was another scientist that came forward and said, "It is my belief," and he talked about Bob Lazar, and I don't remember his name, but he said, "It's my belief that the pilot and the craft are one." So there are other loose stories out
Yeah,
there that's
well,
backing up this magic type propulsion.
so yeah, from the research that I've done, many experiencers have spoken to the idea that the craft itself is alive. It
Right,
has its own consciousness, and yet
right,
at the same time, it seems to require a pilot whose own consciousness is interacting with that of the craft. Uh,
correct.
yeah, it's really strange. As far as energy sources, is that 0 point energy? Is that element
Yeah.
115? Who knows? I would love to know.
Or are they tapping into like, the universal force? Oh God, folks, forgive me, but that universal energy that beings do talk about, is that being tapped in for some sort of a bizarre esoteric power source?
Hey,
Who knows?
chi is
Who
a
knows?
thing, man. I've interacted
Yeah,
with chi. I don't know if you can tap into chi to fly a UFO,
yeah,
but hey, maybe you can. I don't know.
yeah. And
Um,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no,
I've
no,
just got a
keep going,
million
keep
things.
going.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to end with um that this is really interesting, and I don't think I'm going to get in trouble from him for saying this, but with having a ton of conversations with Ross, that Ross told me, look, like Ross is on the side of like Lockheed. Like, wait a minute, we spent billions of dollars on this hunk of junk crap from the 60s you gave us. We spent billions of dollars. We figured it out, and you want it back? No. And Russ, I guess to some degree, other than subverting and not telling the government, I kind of agree with Ross Coulthard. Like, you're going to give this to me and want me to do something with it. We've done something with it, and now you want it back? No, not happening. And I'm in agree with Ross Coulthard. I don't. I think that's Lockheed's property, and that's Lockheed's business now. And it's a fascinating story. God bless Jake Barber for coming forward to stop making me look like a crazy flying idiot. Honest to God, this guy, I'm going to buy this guy steak at Ruth Chris one day. But yeah, so I just wanted to come forward that this this return and not return is absolutely one of the tenets of the story I was emailed back in 2023. That's all.
All right, well, I just got to say, I'm really grateful that the OSAP didn't get the UFO because if they had gotten the UFO, the egg, they would have become an SAP, a special access program, and we never would have heard about OSAP or ATIP. Lou Elizondo never would have come out.
Right.
David Grush never would have come out. We never would have gotten Jake Barber or the UAP disclosure amendment. None of this disclosure stuff would have happened if they'd gotten
Right.
that UFO. But what you say about them trying to get rid of the UFO to throw the government off
Yeah.
makes perfect sense when you think about how the Schumer Rounds Amendment, how it was neutered because the issue of eminent domain was so important. The government wanted what the private contractors had. Probably specifically,
Right.
especially
Oh, well
Lockheed Martin.
said.
I'm sure multiple aerospace companies have stuff, but we know Lockheed does, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
So
if you remember, Jack, Michael talked about the Schumer Amendment, and if you can remember, he wrote us, about that there was a log jam or frustration with Congress regarding the Schumer Amendment and this craft and eminent domain, because that's what Congress wants to do, to subvert now these private contractors and these aerospace companies is eminent domain. I can knock on your door. I can grab whatever I want, and that's not gonna happen without a fight. So thank you for bringing that up.
okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, John, and explaining that to us and running us through your information. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your show. You are my, as I did this morning, you are my cup of coffee in my I swear to God, in my information in the morning. And I'm very proud of you. If I don't want to sound condescending, very proud of you and your show and your listeners in the comments. And I am always privileged to come on and speak
Oh,
to you and your viewers.
before you go, you have a new YouTube channel, don't you?
No, do I?
I thought you had a YouTube channel.
Well, I do. It's huntingvictor.com, but I've had it for like 5 years.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
How often do you update stuff on your channel?
Not often.
Okay,
I
well,
put on the
where
I
should people find you? If people want to reach out to you or
yeah,
find out more about
on
your
my
information.
website, huntingvictor.com. That's also where the pay-per-view link is for the alien interview case closed documentary. You can email me on that website, and I'm only on YouTube, Hunting Victor uh, YouTube channel. I update it once in a while. I put the new telepathic monk, his photo, and what new information about
Yeah,
time
yeah.
sequence that he talked about, which I think is fascinating. I want to be honest and upfront. I did email the time sequence information that I got from ChatBT to Dr. Hal Puthoff and to Eric Davis. Dr. Puthoff actually wrote me back with, that he is going to, digest it, and he thought it was very interesting, and so that it's just an amazing thing that this monk at the end of his age gave some more information that the being gave him, which was we, the beings, operate on what they think or we think and describe it as time sequence, not hours, minutes, dates, but by experiences almost. But amazing,
That's
amazing.
fascinating. And guys, if you don't know, the monk was one of the people that were interacting with the being, the alien, at the alien interview.
Right. And
Yeah.
our investigator made contact 2 weeks ago at the Carthusian Monastery in Mount Equinox, Vermont, the Charter House Transformational Monastery. He got a special permission to talk to this monk who's 91. And it's just fascinating. It's just a fascinating story. And the monk
This should be in a sci-fi novel or a fantasy novel.
and
It's
the
amazing.
monk tells him, he's like, oh, there's several of us that have been used by intelligence for 20, 30 years. Talks about being in East Germany and being used by intelligence to figure out who's a spy or not, or who's counter intel or not, as far as like the enemy. It's wild. And that they have this gift. He calls it the gift. So do what you want.
John, you need to take all this
Crazy, man.
information and make a movie about it or
I
something.
know, I
Yeah.
know. I'm writing it all down. So it's gonna be the book. When I get done with it, the book's gonna be just incredible. Whether people will believe it or not, I don't know. But I do have all the emails and documents, so we'll have to put those in. What do they call that? A bibliography at the end, or yeah, it's crazy.
I love it.
Crazy.
And let me know if Hal Puthoff ever gets back to you.
He did get back to me. No, he did write me back.
Okay.
And he said that it was if you can maybe cut this
Other
out.
than it, well, no, I mean, he said he had to digest it. If he ever does digest it, and has anything further to say about it, I want to know.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he made some comment. Hold on. Yeah, I've got him right here. Maybe you can cut this out so we're not. I'll find it. It's right here. I just saw it 2 seconds ago. And I don't want to give him anything. Um, yeah, he said, "Thank you, John. Very interesting. Hard to imagine. Get back to you soon."
Okay.
So,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. All right.
Dr.
Well,
Hal.
all
Well,
right.
I'm like Dr. Hal's crazy redheaded ADD nephew that he pats on. for 4 years. Then he pats on the head and gives me a cookie and tells me to go off and go play in the middle of traffic. But yeah, Hell's been so patient with me. God bless that guy. So thank you, everyone.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jack.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.